are the common mistakes made when applying the metaphysics of the Matrix. It has been more than, goodness, 24 years since the release of the Matrix. I loved it. I watched that DVD over and over and over again. I love that DVD so much. Yes, kids, there were there was such a thing as DVDs way back in the day. I love that DVD so much I actually combed through the bonus materials. And in it, manifesting enthusiasts were interviewed who attributed what their modicum of success to emulating the example and the teachings of Morpheus. Oops, wrong button. And in it, there was something in the movie that niggled at me. But in the interview with the manifesting enthusiasts, it was stuck in my face like someone had just hit me with a banana cream pie. Believe. You see, my friend, the Wachowski, I have trouble pronouncing the last name. The Wachowski sisters, brilliant filmmakers, brilliant writers, but they're not great Buddhist scholars or yogis, nor need they be. They did a great job. They helped change the world. I'm forever in their debt. But they either knew the secret of Buddhist metaphysics and dumbed it down for the unwashed masses, which makes perfect sense because they had to recoup their what's it called? Their producers' investments. These guys are no fools, or they didn't know. What is it they knew or didn't know? That yang is a hindrance to manifesting. So when I say yang, and I would have loved to put a visual aid here, but I forgot. When I talk about yang, I'm talking about yang metaphorically. I'm not talking about patriarchy metaphorically. The problem is not the presence or absence of a penis. The problem is when people are defined by being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. These characteristics might make you go many places, but true fulfillment, true peace, true magic is not one of them. Consider, if you will, let's jump to a different movie. Let's jump to Phantom Menace, which was released, oh gosh, I would say close to 23 years ago. Maybe 22 years ago. There was this wonderful scene taking place in the battle on Naboo, where Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn are separated by reddish, pinkish force fields. What do? Well, they're waiting for the force fields to cycle through their timing process. What is Maul doing, the Sith Lord, or at least the Sith assassin? He is stalking back and forth like a caged tiger. What is Qui-Gon Jinn doing? He's sitting, meditating, and strengthening his centered spontaneity in the Force. It has been posited by some theorists that the Force showed him that what needed to happen for the balancing of the Force over the course of the next 50 years would be for him to die in the duel. Because once the force field was removed and they swung back into action, basically, Qui-Gon Jinn allowed himself to be rope-a-doped. So Darth Maul seemed to be the winner, seemed to be victorious, the personification of Yang, snarling and ruthless and cruel and arrogant. But he was defeated not even by a master Jedi, but by a Padawan, a Jedi student, to his great astonishment. Which lends itself to the idea, to the argument that perhaps, Qui-Gon Jinn was not as feckless as he might have appeared to have been. But let's get back to our friend Darth Maul. Ferocious, yes. Truly powerful, no. Therefore, we can conclude that the power that Darth Maul displayed was purely superficial, the trappings of power. Perhaps the real power comes not from yang, which hinders our manifesting, but from yin, the key to love's centered spontaneity. The lesson we learn from the life of Qui-Gon Jinn is to flow. Well, we are reminded that the great Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have taught that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. And life's greatest magic comes not from indulging or controlling tendencies and choosing what manifests and what doesn't manifest, and at what time. That's not the key to peace. That's not the key to fulfillment. The opposite is to flow from centered spontaneity in such a way that our choices, utterances, and deeds are in tune with this centered spontaneity. We then become men and women of peace, and our life becomes like a dream come true. The magic of the Matrix. We see this once again back in the Matrix. Consider the ferocity with which Neo fought in vain against the program Agent Smith. Consider his the earnestness with which he fled, the shock when he was pummeled in the chest by high caliber firearm. And then, of course, he had his awakening because of love, because of Trinity. He re-entered the Matrix, or metaphorically re-entered the Matrix, and then he triumphed over Agent Smith. But what was the difference in his demeanor? He was no longer working from yang, he was working from yin. He was no longer earnest, he was quite laid back. Who can forget the scene when he's just lackadaisically blocking Agent Smith's very intense punches, and he starts using one hand? Do you remember that? Wasn't that fun? So belief is an act of rigidity, a rigidity of mind and emotion, which is yang. It is the veneer. It has the appearance of being spiritual, but it really isn't. This is even hinted in the New Testament. Remember, the teachings of Jesus, if he was something more than an archetype, have been manhandled by people with political agenda for many, many, many centuries. Who can forget the folly of Emperor Constantine, who persuaded theologians at point of spear? So yes, but the overarching truths of the Christ have been obscured by men with big spears and small penises and great big political agendas. But the truth has a way of leaking through. And one of those truths is revealed in Sermon on the Mount, specifically in the Lord's Prayer, where Christ utters, "Thy will be done." That is not saying, I'm a master manifester, and I originally believe that you will do this and such. No, he is teaching the opposite. Thy will be done. Know what you want, know what you desire, know what you dread, let go. If Samuel L. Jackson was here, he'd say, let the fuck go. That's the key. Hidden in the first Matrix movie, either deliberately or accidentally, there it is. The Matrix. So Morpheus's character kept saying, are you beginning to believe? He's beginning to believe. Do you now believe? No. Belief is antithetical to being the one. And you just plug into the flow, regardless of what you feel, regardless of what you expect. That's the key to enlightenment. That's the key to being a way seeker Jedi. That's the key to being Neo. That's the key to being Qui-Gon Jinn. I really would like, I really feel that the 14th verse of the total space of Vajrasattva, which is the source text of Dzogchen composed by Prahe Vajra, helps to express this. We read, they coined their terms cause and effect, but both virtues and negativities dissolve completely. They say we will get out of this world and nurture supreme complacency in accepting and rejecting. Being defeatist, saying I'm certain I'm not going to get what I want when I want because I'm a victim of karma, does not help us. Certitude, any form of belief, is more destructive than it is beneficial. Saying I don't want this, I want that, I don't want that, I want this, that duality is antithetical from the acquiescence we see Neo displaying in the final reel of the Matrix after he has had his awakening, so to speak. Contrast, if you will, Neo with Morpheus. Morpheus had the rigidity of a zealot. Consider the conversation Neo had with Morpheus during the training programs, how forceful he was, how manipulative it was, how he actually demeaned Neo a couple times. Consider the line, do you think that's air you're breathing? And then he laughs. No, that's Yang. When Neo has fully enlightened in the final reel of the Matrix, he's all about the yin. We can do the same thing. That's why we practice meditation. That's why we practice mindfulness, hopefully once every 12 hours or so. So I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso, a guy who has acquired expertise in each school of Buddhism but has a rather limited wardrobe. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Folks, you don't need to chant, you don't need to supplicate to real or imagined celestial entities. However, I found that people like structure. Something to signify, here comes meditation, and then to signify, there went meditation. And just like bookends on a shelf, they like a little recitation at the beginning and a little at the end, and that's fine. And so we play with recitations, not as prayers, but as mechanisms to strengthen the neural pathways responsible for bodhicittas and loving empathy and refuges enthusiasm. So we're going to play with two recitations. The first is more literal, and we're setting it to the triplet chant. Join me, if you please. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hate, engraving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. I just had a brainstorm. I'm going to run with it for a minute. I think this might be fun if I can make it work. Insert symbols. Is there a musical symbol I can find? Let me scroll down. Looking for a triplet symbol. That would be very, very cool. Oh, that's Hebrew. That's Arabic. Come on now. Remember the team like to be cartoon underdog. Simon says, give me a triplet musical notation. Well, that's Greek. Okay, now we're getting into some symbols. Looking for a triplet, and I'm looking for a quarter note. That's not a triplet. That's a... Well, maybe I can get fancy and use both a quarter note and then a triplet. And see if that somehow infers that we're doing triplets. Let's do the same thing over here. Copy. Paste. Come on, where's paste? And now let's go over to quarter notes. Hit copy. Oh, let's no. Before we do that, let's go over here. Paste. And then paste. See if that makes more sense. Okay. Let's make sure that the screen's still copacetic. Here we go. Together. May I liberate all quarter notes, beings from the tyranny of hate, engraving and clinging, by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Well, folks, it's a work in progress. Thank you for tolerating my eccentricities. Now, let's get out of Dodge. So we conclude with 3 nouns, example, instructions, and students. These things are so useful, they've earned the metaphoric nickname of the 3 wish-fulfilling jewels, which are mentioned in the second and final pre-meditation chant, which is much more concise and much more figurative. And we're using now the bookend chant. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. And now let's meditate. It's fairly simple. Mindfulness is easy. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access a sympathetic nervous system, which is wired not for active concentration, but to simply perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, as is inferred by the following recitation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. So what do we do with that which we observe? Well, we meditate upon it, but how does that work? During each exhalation, we effortlessly access the parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release, as is inferred in the following recitation, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Or in other words, every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could now figuratively feel as if it was as non-graspable as that which is non-graspable, such as the illusion of the infinite azure sky, which, although is tantalizing to the hands, though reach for it we may with splayed fingers, we never pull back even a scrap of blue. So now, together as a team, let us prepare to meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo. As children, one of our primary caregivers most likely bolted a pair of training wheels to our bicycle. They were clunky, but they got the job done. Similarly, this morning's first meditation is also clunky, but it will get the job done. So let's start off with this bad boy. Let us now remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels and transition from 12-syllable meditations to their 3-syllable counterparts. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite "Notice this," and during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite "Relaxing." There are times when our circumstance or our bodies or our relationships or our mind works us like a schoolyard bully. And during those times, it can be helpful to play with one of 10 labels. And we work with these labels not to control our circumstance, but to harness their kinetic energy. Labels such as appearance, resonance, sensation, this flavor, this fragrance, emotion, intention, cognition, recollect, and imagine. Each of these are 3 syllables long. Let us not fall into the trap of perfectionistically or neurotically seeking the perfect label in the perfect moment. Please give yourself permission to have a shallow learning curve. We were born naked, screaming, and covered in filth. Life is messy, but Dr. Malcolm reminds us, life finds a way. So, kick back, have fun, enjoy the ride. This is not something horrible that you endure to get something good. Meditation is liberation. Meditation is the application of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. This is liberation. What then is enlightenment? Mastering this. You master this. Get so good that you practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. And then don't be surprised when they call you Buddha. And remember, it doesn't have to take a length of time equivalent to the birth and death of numerous universes. It can be done in as little as 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks. For the truly audacious, even 7 days. No, we don't play with each label for a set number of repetitions in a specific sequence. That would be rigid. We practice in a spontaneous way. Contrary to the ravings of some teachers, our lungs are located in our rib cage, so do not be surprised when your body tends to breathe from your rib cage. At last, we remove the second of 2 metaphoric training wheels and transition from 3-syllable exercises to 1-syllable exercise, thus reaching metaphoric cruising altitude. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym for relax. It should come as little surprise that transitioning the 10 polysyllabic labels to the one-syllable format requires some poetic license. Therefore, we could refer to physical sensation as form, emotional sensation as feel, recollection as then, and imagination as dream. at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, and of course be sure to click the send icon. I'll check for questions approximately once every 9 minutes or so. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. And of course, be sure to click the send icon. I typically check for questions about once every 8 or 9 minutes or so. If this is your first time, here's the lowdown. As we breathe in, we are wired to perceive. To facilitate this, or to get out of our own way, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Every time we exhale, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release. To get out of our own way, it may be helpful, during each exhalation, to silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. It is not our job to concentrate. It's not our job to pin our thoughts to a corkboard wall. That's kind of violent. Let's pretend we are in a playhouse, a theater, if you will. We are not the playwright, we're not the director, we're not the thespian, we're not the producer. We're just some individual sitting in the audience watching the show. We don't control it. But we can harness what we experience through the occasional use of the 10 labels you see on the screen. Form we use for physical sensation, feel we use for emotional sensation, then we use for recollection, dream we use for imagination. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. But to seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. May everyone be happy, may everyone, let's try this again. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.